Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Burke and Mike Nodelman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And the sound of whatever that is means it is time once again for the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke and his bathroom. I'm Mike Nodelman.
I'm Aaron Burke.
And today we have a huge show for you. There are a lot of auctions to be talking about. We have a Pearl of Wisdom, which I think is just a good lesson in life. And since we got so much, let's get right to it. Aaron, what do you want to cover from last week? Actually, how was your
and also it was really good. It was really good. So I went to the IPN, that's the International Association of Professional Numismatists, and it is the organization that is the premier organization for the world of numismatics, mostly ancient and world dealers, but there are some U.S. dealers in it as well, but mostly ancient and world. It is over 100 firms are members, so it pretty much represents every firm, every major firm in the world for ancient and world, and all the auction houses as well. So, and represents, pretty much almost every continent as well, which is really cool. So it's a good way. We don't go and we don't sell coins. It's just go and we have a couple working sessions, and then it's a lot of social interactions with the other firms. And I'm not supposed to talk about what we discussed there because that's supposed to be for the press release department or group of the IPN. But there were some really interesting things discussed, and some good policy as us as dealers. The one thing that's really nice about the IPN and say the PNG, which is the Professional Numismatic Guild, is that you're governed by the rules of those organizations. So if you sell a fake and you don't give the money back, then you can be kicked out of the organization. Yeah, they have arbitration, and so your peers can then kick you out. So the advantages is, like, right now I'm in a lawsuit with a company in Europe because they won't give my client their money back on a coin that ended up being fake, and they're not a member of any organization. So I had to take them to Swiss court to try to get the money back. Otherwise, they just refused. And if they were a member of the IPN, then I would be able to go to arbitration through the IPN, and that means not having to pay for lawyers or any of that garbage. And so, and what's even interesting is this company, which I can't say because I'm in a lawsuit with them, is that they tried to get into the IPN a number of years ago, and they were blocked because all the dealers knew they were no good. But I didn't know that at the time. So, but in any case.
Well, and at the end of the day, your customer is going to end up getting their money back.
Yeah, I'm going to fight for them. So I've already put out like over probably about $25,000 of my own money or my company's money to fight for the client, because that's just was the right thing to do. So, and it's a principal thing also at this point. It's 6 months of coin, but it's a principal thing at this point as well. I don't think that companies like that should get away with that. And
no,
I think it's wrong. So, they've been given, I've had every organization, even NGC, weigh in and say the coin is fake, and they just simply won't listen. So anyway, these organizations are really important for those types of scenarios because they really do protect the consumer more than anything else. And so, and to be a member of those organizations, you can't have felonies. You have to be voted in. There's a lot of rules that you have to follow. And then if there's a problem between the dealers, there's the arbitration aspect. And then we as an organization also fight some of the rules and regulations that are running through Congress to help fight against some of these the CPAC and restrictions that are going on, whether it's in Europe or in the United States. And so it puts all the dealers and all the companies on an even even what's the word I'm
Footing?
looking for? Yeah, just footing, and also just having the proper direction to speak as one voice. So, and we talked more about that at the, just being able to discuss as a group and moving forward as a group. So, in any case, we're more powerful as a group than we are as an individual. Basically,
Always are.
what
Yes.
these organizations are really good for. So anyway. So it was good, and it's in a different place of the world every year. This year it was in Madrid, Spain. Next year it's in Rome for the 75th anniversary of the IPN. Then maybe Hong Kong or South Africa. So it's interesting because you get to go to a different place of the world. You get to network with all of the other dealers and companies around the world, and discuss the numismatic industry and the problems that we face today. So anyway, okay. So moving on, let's
it truly is a worldwide industry, and so the face-to-face contact that you make in those situations is really invaluable.
It is for sure. And I had actually not gone for a number of years, and I'm gonna start going again more often and try to go to Europe more often as well, because I've been I did a lot of that traveling in my 20s, and I need to start going back again. So and it sounds glamorous, and it somewhat is, but it's also very exhausting because you jet lagged, and I was only there for 4 days, so it's quite a quick in and out, and so yes, there's a lot of nice social aspects of it, but also it's also work. So all right, let's move on to we reviewed the Astarte auction, which was on June 10th. So at the beginning of this month that we're about to close out on, and the JAYLA Tetradrachm that brought 22,000 Swiss francs. That was a very strong price for that. Very, very strong price. I would have expected it to be a little softer, but it is a great coin. So there is that. Next lot 60. I was told after I showed this coin that it was actually withdrawn from an NAC sale, and then it ended up in this sale. So I'm glad that it's was listed as withdrawn here, because I'm not sure if it was marked as withdrawn at NAC or not. I didn't look at that, but this will then now show up in coin archives and other places as being withdrawn. Once it's withdrawn in an auction site like Numisbids, it'll forever be marked as withdrawn if you go to search this coin. So it was obviously a fake. It was a good one. I couldn't tell just from the photos, but then I was told later that it had been withdrawn earlier, and I was going to report that it was a fake, but luckily I didn't have to, because they did the right thing and pulled the coin. So so this is an advantage for the collectors down the road, that to know this coin will always be recorded as a fake. So next lot 97, the Bosporus, also very strong price, 1,900 Swiss francs. Beautiful coin. I mean, I profiled because I really like the coin, but that was a very strong price. I see the prices in general in the market seem to be still pretty healthy overall, and so and this is kind of an obscure auction, still did quite well. It had nice coins, so it pulled in some people.
It's a nice looking coin.
It's a nice looking coin, but it's a strong price. So I mean, you're not factoring in the buyer's fees or the exchange rate. So you're probably looking at $2,300 or $2,400. It's quite a bit of money for that coin. But still a nice coin. Next lot 225, the coin I really love. Didn't bring a lot. 100 Swiss francs, which was the estimate.
So the opening bid.
Yep. And so somebody got a good deal, I think, on that coin. I love that coin because of the sistrum on the reverse of the coin, and so and it is a scarcer denomination as well, and so it's nice to see somebody got a deal there. So that's the opposite of a doofus. That was actually a bargain. So congrats to the new owner. And so that's the Astarte auction. And moving on, I didn't profile this ahead of time, but I decided to show it off just briefly. It was a very obscure place to sell ancient coins. Doesn't normally have ancient coins. And it was the Doyle auction in New York, and they had a one person's collection. It was the Carol F. Ross collection, and it was, I believe, 130 coins. And every coin, you know, a lot of times people will see something like this is an estate house sale for the most part. They don't really have coins typically, and and you can see the photography is not very good. The write-ups were okay, not bad, but most of the coins were X stacks from the late 80s, early 90s. And they had what was called a white glove sale, which means that every lot sold. There was not a passed lot. And and so a lot, so I had a client tell me about the sale, and then I had a very big collector ask me about this, if I was bidding in the sale, and I said yeah, and they said, oh, it's the sale that everybody knows about. So as soon as I heard that, I knew that there was no chance of buying anything for stock, that everything was going to be really expensive. And so I think the days of having a sale go unnoticed is very, very unusual these days.
Yeah.
So
nothing flying under the radar today.
No, not really. And you can see, because even probably there was a lot of non-educated collectors that saw the sale that didn't know anything about ancient coins as well, and maybe that's why some of the prices were stronger than normal on some of the more common coins. And so showing lot 42, which was a Julius Caesar elephant coin, brought $1,815. I think that might be with the buyer's premium. I don't think that's an $1,800 coin. I think it's pretty worn for the type. But these things, the elephants have been bringing more, but in higher grade. So, I thought that was a pretty healthy price for that. And then the star of the sale, which wasn't all that great of a coin, lot 62. This is the Brutus Aureus. And what's really interesting about this coin is that my father actually was involved with that coin for the John Whitney Walter collection, the Men of Rome catalog. If any of you are familiar with that, the Men of Rome, which I actually have, we still have catalogs of that. It was actually a stack sale that my dad did in conjunction with them. His client, John Whitney Walter, he was Trump's cousin. And I have a very funny story about John Whitney. He was a very nice man. In fact, he was actually fired by Trump, which I think Trump fires a lot of people, even cousins. But
he might be known for the phrase.
Yeah. So, but John Whitney was a very nice man. And when I was either I was 11 or 12, maybe 10. My father, he always wanted me to be involved in the coin business, and I never really took to it because I played sports and I had a little collection, but I wasn't really into collecting per se when I was younger. And I would go to my dad's place and I would do certain things like, clean coins or, brushing coins or
sword coins.
Yeah, or sword, or I would be putting the stamps at the time on catalogs that were mailing. And so that kind of stuff. Right. But anyway, my dad took me to a CICF show to bid in an auction for John Whitney Walter. He was actually representing him. And my dad had me bid on the coin. And then we won the coin, and it was like, I don't remember, maybe it was $75,000 to $100,000, something like that. And so it was the first time I ever officially represented somebody in an auction. And so I could probably literally say I've been representing clients in auction for 50 years.
Did you get the juice for it?
Well, here's where my dad did something really interesting. My dad had me travel with him to New York, first time I was ever in New York. And I remember getting in the cab, coming from the airport, and my dad telling me, watch, the cabbies will all be honking at each other like crazy. And that's exactly what happened. And then we went and we met with John Whitney, and I handed him the coin, and he handed me the commission check written out to me, and it was like for $1,000 or something like that, which for me was all the money in the world.
Of course.
And at the time, and I remember going back home and riding my bike to the bank and depositing the check. And somebody recently said, "Did you keep the check?" And I'm like, "No," because I didn't understand the importance at the time, obviously. So anyway,
it's a way better bike now.
What's that?
But
yes, I have
a bike now.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. So I don't have the banana seat anymore.
No.
So anyway, this coin actually was in the John Whitney Walter collection, Men of Rome. My dad actually built this collection. It was all gold. And it was at the time, one of the most famous collections ever put together of Roman gold. And, and this was probably one of the worst coins in the collection, honestly.
It's really not looking all that great.
No, and they claim it's ex-jewelry. I'm not sure if that's the case. Somebody said they saw it and viewed it and said it was ex-jewelry. You could tell from the edge. It only brought I think it brought 20 grand in NFA, 17 grand. It didn't bring a lot. And here it brought over $300,000. It was a lot of money for that coin. A lot of money. It's a rare coin, but that's a lot of money. So over 300 grand for this coin is a ton. So normally I would say that the family did a mistake by giving this collection to a non-ancient coin seller, but in this case it worked out quite well, especially since everybody ended up knowing about it. Everybody showed up thinking they were going to get a deal, and in the end everybody ended up paying over retail in a lot of cases.
That's the best of all scenarios for them.
Right. And they sold every single coin as well. So which is also quite rare. So I guess that was a good outcome for them, and it was fun seeing some of these old coins that my dad and others handled back in the day. So that was fun. Yeah, exactly. So moving on, that's our review. Upcoming auctions. So we have the Loy sale. It's a web auction 34. It's going to be July 5th through the 8th. And why so many days? Because there's over 4,400 coins. It's a ridiculous amount of coins.
There's a lot. If you look at there's 4,665 lots.
Yes. And that's primarily all ancient coins. There are some other group lots, seals, some other things, but it's basically all ancient coins. And it's a massive amount of coins, massive amount. There are some very nice mid-level coins in here. There is pretty much a coin for every collector in the world of ancients in this collection. Why so many coins, so many lots? I have no idea. Other than the fact is, I think it's too many. Most people who have commented to me on this sale thinks it's a ridiculous amount of coins to be offered. Loy was doing this a couple of years ago. I remember one sale was even 7,000 lots, which is even worse.
Almost twice as bad.
Yeah,
I think the interesting thing here is going to be, it'll be a nice case study in what happens to the mid lots, what happens to the end lots. Will they wear people out? Will it end up in bidding strategies for other people?
Yeah, I mean, I think my bidding strategy for this would be you kind of have to show up if you want a deal and wait for things to fall through the cracks. The other way is you just leave your bids and don't go crazy. Just leave where you're comfortable losing it and just leave it and walk away. I'll probably bid in the sale. I already started to, just for stock, and I'll probably leave 100 or 200 bids. But if I get 10 lots, okay, fine, whatever, but I'm not going to go and chase anything. And always be careful leaving. If you're going to leave a bid, make sure you don't leave a bid that's like double or triple what you'd want to pay, because yes, you'll be guaranteed to get it, but you also might be guaranteed to pay the exact amount at the high level. So always be careful when you're leaving bids like that. But if you're sitting through the auction, which I don't know if anybody wants to sit through hours and hours and hours of auction, you can wait for your section, kind of time it out, and show up, and then see what falls through the cracks. I highlighted a couple coins here. The first one, lot 29, I thought was interesting because non-expensive coin, but interesting because you have the coin manufacturing tools on the reverse, which is pretty cool. I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So this is, look, it's not a pretty coin, but it for what we do and how we collect coins, this is actually pretty cool. And so for not a lot of money, you can get something that really has a lot of symbolism. And I think that that's the beauty of collecting ancient coins, is you don't always have to have a great coin, but you can have something that has deep symbolism that is important for how you collect. And so that coin tells a story. And all coins do tell a story. Some tell better stories than others. And so I think this is one of those case studies here. Next lot 29.
Oh, that was lot 29.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, okay. Lot 223. Sorry, you were right. And I was wrong.
Wow.
Lysimachus Tetradrachm. I brought this up because this will be our educational section today. We're going to talk about the Tetradrachms of Lysimachus. They are pretty much in every auction. The king of Thrace, one of the generals or close fighters for Alexander the Great, who then took over territory in Thrace and then in Asia Minor. And so very much a very Hellenistic portrait of Alexander as Zeus-Ammon, and with Athena on the reverse in the name of Lysimachus. We'll go over these, but I just wanted to show this coin because to show that these coins are typically in the market, and depending on condition and style can go for anywhere from $500 all the way up to $15,000, depending on how nice the coin is. I know that these types of coins often end up, the higher graded ones ended up in slabs, because in high designated holders with beautiful style, they'll bring between $12,000 and $15,000, which is a lot more than what they would sell for 20 years ago, which was on average between $500 and $1,000 in general, maybe occasionally the $2,000 one. So they've really skyrocketed, and this is really a result of the slabbing market, where a lot of people are buying these coins in raw to put them into holders. So, and that's where this kind of touches. Moving on, lot 1992, probably the most expensive coin in their sale. It's Mark Antony with his wife at the time, Octavia, who was the sister of Octavian, and so who later became Augustus. And Mark Antony and Octavia, they didn't mint many coins. This was probably one of the last coins before Mark Antony ditched Octavia for Cleopatra.
Yeah, baby.
And that didn't do Mark Antony much good, because probably pushed the case for Octavian to then take out Cleopatra and Mark Antony. He was a bit pissed at the time, I would imagine. And so marriages like this typically would bring families together and unite. In this case, that was the initial thought, but after Mark Antony left, Octavia probably spawned the end of Mark Antony in some results, or at least gave Octavian a reason to take them out. So an excuse, I should say. But not a high grade coin, but these typically don't come very high grade. They were produced in Greece at the time, where they honeymooned and where they were at. And so a beautiful historical coin for the time period. So, and that's the Loy sale. Too many coins to profile. Just picked a couple that I thought were interesting to talk about, but definitely check it out. Yeah, definitely check it out.
I want to do 4,000 coins. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, some would say it's flooding the market with too many coins at one time. Others love this situation. Don't think you're going to, I think people will probably get some deals, but it's not going to be easy. I don't know if they protect the coins, how much of that goes on, but, and I can't say one way or the other, but, again, I don't think there's going to be as many deals as people think there are. That's my whole point.
Well, if there's not a lot of deals, then there's a lot of coins that won't sell.
Because
there's only so much money in the market.
Yeah, I think things will still sell because whether the auction house protects it or not, that could be some of that going on. There could be reserves on some of the coins that are kind of internal. So I think Lloyd typically doesn't show a lot of unsold coins from my experience. Doesn't mean that it won't happen, but in general, I think things will probably sell. So that's my experience with them anyway. So that brings us to a company I don't always profile, but I've been asked to occasionally, and that's our sale, the 232nd buy or bid sale. We actually launched it a couple of weeks ago. The catalogs will be mailed, I believe, Monday or Tuesday of this week. So if you're on our mailing list, you will get a paper catalog coming in the mail. And what we've been doing the last couple of years now already, we have the Curtis Clay collection. So we always start with the Curtis Clay collection, which is usually between 1 and 200 coins. And then we go into our regular stock after that. So so you always see like Severin, which is normally you'd start out a sale with Greek. But in this case, because we're doing Curtis's collection first, it always ends up with his collection first and then the regular stock in the middle. So starting in the middle anyway. So I'll talk about a couple of coins that, a lot of coins have sold, not a ton, but, maybe close to 100 coins out of the 600 some coins that we have in the sale. Plus we have artifacts as well. But I'm not going to profile any of the artifacts because this is a coin show on ancient coins. So the first lot I'd profile is lot 78. This is a very rare Caracalla. I believe the only one that's known. And so there is a hefty price tag on it. But if you understand the way our sales work, it's buy or bid. There are no buyer's fees, which means you either pay the full price and get it immediately, or you place an offer/bid below the asking price. And if you're the highest offer at the end of the sale and we accepted that offer, then you'll get it at that price with no buyer's fees, just the shipping cost at that point. And so we never sell over the buy price, and it's a first come, first serve. Whoever gets the coin buys it first. So a lot of times when we launch these sales, we'll sell 80 to 100 coins straight away in the first 24 to 48 hours. And it really is a first come, first serve basis. So it gives collectors the opportunity to beat out a billionaire or a millionaire that they would be competing for in public auction because they got to the coin first. And so we always try to price the coins fairly based on auction market at the time. And then basically, if I have the coin as a consignment, I work with the client and see what they're willing to accept. It gives a great opportunity for the consigners because they control the fate of the value of what their coin sells for all through the sale. Whereas in a public auction, the auction house wants you to go in what they call naked, meaning no reserve or very low reserve, because they'll tell you they want to draw interest, and then it'll end up selling where it sells. And then And a lot of the auction houses will offer 0% or sometimes 0 plus part of the buyer's fees. They're giving away so much, and we've talked about that, where it's really they're getting the buyer to cover all of the fees that they're giving away to the sellers to try to compete for collections. And that's why you keep seeing buyer's fees going up and up and up and up and up, because the auction houses keep giving away too many of the fees to the seller. And where in our sale, I might charge, I charge 15%, but I protect the coin all the way through. So there never really is a coin that sells for below what the client expects. And in fact, I will sometimes cut my commission to sell the coin to make sure the client or the seller still gets exactly what they expect to be getting as their low net value. And hopefully it sells for a full price, and then they just get the 85% after that. But there really is no risk in my sales, is the point. In every single public auction, I always buy a coin that is way below wholesale. And that means that there's somebody on the other side that's unhappy because they didn't make money. So in any case, moving on, lot 119, really interesting coin of Maximinus, Aureus here, showing Hercules on the reverse, and it really is all about the reverse on this coin. This coin also has a pedigree back to, I believe, let me look here. I think it was, so this is Sternberg from 1985. So really pretty coin. And I got this on consignment from another dealer who doesn't normally have ancient coins, but got this old collection in. So pretty interesting. Again, we have videos of every single coin, even if it's $100. We have a video of every single coin that we sell, or artifact, or anything like that. So really nice luster on the coin. Pretty coin. So in this case, somebody wants to pay the 18.5. That's what all they pay is the 18.5. If they want to pay 15 or 14, then we have to talk to the consignor and see if that's something they want to accept or not. So, and that's basically what people can buy it all the way up till the end. So, and then moving on, lot number 472. This is a very cool coin, not pretty, but Antony's pious, but it has Mount Gerizim on the back, which was a sacred mountain in the Central West Bank. And it was it holds religious significance for Samaritans who believed it to be the true original location chosen by God for his holy temple, not Jerusalem. So so there's a lot of worship and biblical significance here on the reverse of this coin. If you collect architectural or historical coins, this is a coin you'd want. So it's sometimes the worn coins are the most interesting and more mostly sought after. So this coin fills all of those requests there.
Ticks all the boxes.
Yep. And then finally, lot 484. We have a nice collection at the end of this sale of Bactrian silver, tetradrachms and drams. And this is Menander, and Menander the First. And he was an Indo-Greek king. He ruled over large territories in present-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northern India. He actually converted to Buddhism, according to the Buddhist text, and so pretty interesting guy, obviously. And this was all part of the David McDonald collection that we recently got to work with. And so we're going to be offering a lot of ex-David McDonald coins. David, if none of you know, he wrote several books. He was a good friend of my father's and mine for I've known him my whole life, pretty much. David was a professor at the University of Illinois, Illinois State, I believe, and very good academic. And he wrote books on overstrikes. He wrote several other books as well that were published on Black Sea material as well. And then he had Bactrian. And when we got the collection, he had been working on some other books. And some of these coins are books that he was going to maybe publish down the road. So, look to see a lot of overstrike and other coins from the David McDonald collection, which is in this current sale. So anyway, that's our buyer bid sale. It's going to close August 7th. So you basically have the whole month of July yet to go. And then whatever hasn't sold on the last day, that's when we take offers below our asking price. So check it out today. And thanks a lot for all the support there. And then I didn't really pick out a doofus. I mean, you could almost say the Brutus, Aureus, and Doyle was a doofus, sort of. But I didn't feel like picking on anybody again. So
you're getting soft-hearted in your old age there. You gotta knock that off.
A little bit. So that's going to bring us to our educational section. And I decided to do it on Lysimachus Tetradrachms. And why not?
Why not? Let's see if I can do this the right way.
There we go. So pretty interesting guy. And there's drams of Lysimachus as well, but I decided just to focus on the tetradrachms because that's more sought after. And
a little bit bigger.
I asked AI to give me a realistic portrait of Lysimachus, and that's what it produced, which I thought was pretty interesting. So if you want to go to the next slide, Mike. Since Mike loves maps, I decided to give him some maps. So Lysimachus, he was one of Alexander the Great's bodyguards, and so he didn't fight in too many of his battles. But after Alexander's death in 323 BC, when all of the generals and other higher ups of Alexander's military took over the lands that they had conquered, Lysimachus took over Thrace and then went into Asia Minor. And so this is kind of the beginning right after, close after Alexander's death. And you can see where the different generals actually were taking over land. You can see Seleucus the first, you can see Ptolemy the first taking over Egypt, and all the other land that Alexander had conquered. And then his generals, and in this case his bodyguard, actually took over land. So pretty interesting as far as that goes. If you go to the next slide, Mike, you got a little bit of a history on Lysimachus. And he actually died in 281 BC. So he was 80 years old. So he actually lived a pretty long life. Honestly,
long life for somebody in that age.
For kings go, and he was an ally of Seleucus first, but then later they actually fought, and he lost at the Battle of Carudium in Western Asia Minor. And you can see where Lysimachus's land started to move into Asia Minor, and that's probably where the battle with Seleucus came, and why they started to fight. When you start to move farther into people's territories, then obviously you're going to create some problems. So it seems like today there isn't much change. Things still happen for the same reasons, right? So history repeats itself, right? So if we break down the coin, if you want to go to the next slide, Mike. On the obverse of the coin, it's not Lysimachus, but it's Alexander the Great. And Alexander actually go here. So Alexander actually he went to this it's called the Oracle at Sayal Oasis. in Egypt, and so he then claimed that he was the son of Zeus-Ammon, the divinity image, godlike ruler. And so the Greeks like to mix gods with the Egyptian gods, and here's a perfect example. So you have Ammon Zeus, which is Zeus, and Ammon is the Egyptian god. Zeus is obviously the Greek god. And so Ammon, Egyptian god, originally it was a local Theban god. Ammon rose to become one of Egypt's most powerful deities by the New Kingdom. He was associated with the sun god, Ra, as Ammon-Ra, the king of the gods, often depicted with a ram's head or horns. And then obviously you have Zeus, chief deity of the Greek Pantheon, thank you, god of the sky, thunder, and kingship, known for power, authority, and impotence.
No, omnipotence.
Way
Way different.
So, of course, Alexander then takes on these two gods, right? So you can see the horn there, and Lysimachus was really good about spreading the history, or the iconography, I should say, of Alexander way beyond even Alexander's death, and then even following after Lysimachus's death, these coins were still created posthumously afterwards. So it's amazing how long some of these coins lasted. If you go to the next slide, we have the reverse of the coin, which is going to have Athena, goddess of war, holding a Nike victory. And in the legends, it reads, King of Lysimachus. And so you can see the victory is actually crowning the name Lysimachus, which is kind of cool. So, all right. If you want to go to the next slide, mostly we reference these things through the essays in Greek coinage from 1962, 68. And I can barely see sometimes. And it was actually done by Margaret Thompson, who was a great American academic at the time. And this is just the pages for the Lysimachus mints here are just, this whole article is from pages 163 to 182. There's like 300 pages in this essays and that was presented to Stanley Robinson, that was edited by Cray and Jenkins in 68. And there are, Mueller is another reference that people use. Some people use SNGANS and some of the other references, but this is the main reference that pretty much every numismatist uses. And it will show you how we use it. If you go to the next slide, kind of broke it down here for you. And this is a page from that book. And so here, all the symbols is like very similar to how we catalog coins of Alexander the Great. There are little mint marks throughout the reverse of the coin and on the obverse in some cases, like here, that you can then look up the coin, and once you find all the symbol breakdowns, then it will tell you which mint it is and what the circa date is as well. Works very similar to that. So if you look here, you have a herm in red, in the two red arrows. You have the herm and a cult image in between the name of Lysimachus, and then you have a symbol, a geometric symbol underneath the throne in yellow, and then in purple you can see the K underneath the bust of Alexander the Great as Zeus-Ammon. And if you look, it's lot number, it's number 224 in the article, in the Thompson essay Robinson article, and you can read there where it actually has all the different things and says where it is. In some cases it might be a crescent or herm, and then the monogram, and then a monogram, and then a K below the neck. So once you match all that up, then we know that this coin was circulated in Pergamum between 287 and 282 BC. So that was it's a lifetime issue.
That's really cool.
So, so people ask how we catalog these things when they all look the same. This is how you catalog it. And occasionally you do get some with mint marks that were not recorded in 68 by by Thompson, but and then that in those cases it'll say why it will say uncertain mint because it hasn't been cataloged as such at the time because that reverse type wasn't known at the time, and it came out obviously over the last 50 years, 60 years, something like that. So,
and I kind of like to point out the fact that for those that aren't familiar with the term, in exurg means that something is written underneath a line.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that's where it's talking about these markings. You see the line underneath the Athena on the back. There's writing underneath it. That is in exurg.
Yeah, and the exurg line is usually the base of the line of where the imagery is.
Right.
And so it's anything below that line is under the exurg. And then left field, right field, underthrown sometimes. And then not always, but in this case, you do have a K underneath. And sometimes that K, that's the other thing too, is that some of these symbols will end up off the flan. So you then have to then match what you have and then decide, well, there probably is that under the throne. It just was off the flan. So you match up as much as you can, and then most likely it's the same mint. It's just off the flan at that point. And so sometimes when you have these brackets, sometimes you'll see these brackets underneath in the description of people. They'll put like little brackets around the legend, and that means that it's off the flan. It's not on the coin. So if you see little brackets in the description, so you'll have a legend and then part of the legend will be in brackets. That means that it's off the flan. It's not visible on the coin.
And this is one of the reasons why plate coins are so important, is because when you're trying to find something, the marks that you see, it's like the plate coin is going to be probably the most complete representation. So you'll be able to go back and look for things that may run off your coin.
Absolutely. And why it's good to look at the best examples that we can look at, because you don't always have that when you're looking up your coin. Your coin's going to be, not as, this is probably a
likely
$10,000 to $15,000 coin.
Yeah.
So, and so here you have everything. And so that's why we use these coins to catalog, because when you can see everything, then it makes looking for because a lot of times you may see that K underneath the thing, but it doesn't look like a K, but then, you're like, oh, that's a V, maybe because you only have the top part of it or something like that. And then all of a sudden you're like, you start looking it up and you're like, oh, it's a K. That's what it is, So it's, you might have that. Yeah. So you might, it's, or maybe the herm is so worn, you only get like a little fraction of it, but you don't notice it. And then as soon as you're like, oh, there's supposed to be a herm there, you're like, oh, I see the outline now, so looking these things up really opens your eyes to really what's on the coin or what was on the coin.
Right.
So, moving on, all of the different, at his height, he had a lot of different mints that were producing tetradrachms at the time. I think I have all of them for the most part listed here. And then next to it, I put a modern map of what exists here today. So
because I'm always going nuts about this, and this is for me. I like seeing where the ancient world compares to the modern world, because you can say Turkey, but as an American, we're notorious for being poor at geography. I just don't really, have a lot of context for it. And so it just makes it easier to understand.
Right. And I know there's some repeating of the words and stuff. It was funny. I had AI kind of help me draw these maps, and it kept missing mints, and I had to keep adding mints. And then, so I was teaching AI a little bit. So, but it makes it easier to kind of present these things. So, but that's where you need to have, human contact with AI so that you can then teach it, because it's not always thorough, right?
It's a tool. It's not an end.
Tool.
It's not. Yeah, it's a tool.
It's a tool. So, so if we move on, I just want to profile a couple of coins now that have sold most recently. So here's a coin minted at Pergamum, and I showed in the map exactly where it was in the map. And this one sold at Sovereign Rarities in June 11th, so just a few weeks ago. Brought 3,300 pounds. Doesn't include the buyer's fees. Nice coin for the type, and nice stylistically. Strong price, I think. I don't know if I would have been able to sell this coin for that much money. So, but a decent coin, all the less. If we move to the next slide, we have one minted at Pella, and this was sold at Hess Devo May 25th, and it brought 1,000 Swiss francs. That's about what I would expect for this. I think in this grade, anywhere between $800 and $1,400 is about what I would expect for this kind of quality and artistic merit. And then if we go to the next slide, you can see how the dies can really vary depending on who puts it out. At Amphipolis, what's really interesting is that Alexander Tetradrachms also used the racing torch as their symbol. So obviously the mints, depending on, they didn't necessarily always change. But what's really interesting in the outside legend there in front of King, it has a bee or a fly, which is pretty interesting. Went for a crazy amount of money though. 8,000 Swiss francs or euros is a ton of money at Corny and Mosh. This was just March 3rd of this year. I think that was way too much money for that coin. Way too much money. So not worth that much. A nice coin, but not the best style on the obverse. Just really way too expensive. But hey, somebody wanted it. 2 people wanted it, I should say.
Apparently, yeah.
And then finally, this is where this is, several hundred years after Lysimachus's death, they were still issuing coins with his style. So you can see it's very crude. This is obviously posthumous. This is done between 90 and 80 BC. This sold at the Patrick Gouillard sale in May of this year, brought 490 euros. That's about what I would expect. These things sell for between $400 and $600, $700, somewhere in that range. But you can see even hundreds of years after Lysimachus's death, they were still issuing this. These were the last of it in Byzantium, where they were issuing coins that are of the same type of the Lysimachus type. So pretty cool to see how the styles change over time and how they were still being used because there were still illiterate people. And so imagery was very important. And so the images didn't change because they knew these to be of coins. And so that's our look at Lysimachus tetradrachms. And I was really excited to do that one. So
there was a lot
there. A lot of fun for me anyway.
There was a lot there.
Yeah, it was a lot there. So, and we'll get into Seleucid, and we can get into any of these guys that kind of it just shows the importance, how important Alexander the Great was, and how he dictated history for hundreds of years after his death.
Well,
it's pretty cool.
Truly
all the way up to the Romans.
Yeah, that truly does demonstrate his greatness if it impacts the world hundreds of years after your death.
Mm-hmm. Until the Romans basically took over. So took a while, right? But it finally happened, but it did take a while. So I'll let you read our Pearl of Wisdom, Mike.
Oh, well, okay. So, this is something that I believe in personally. It's summertime, or at least in the Northern Hemisphere it is. Do something in the fresh air. Okay? So, let's do a giveaway of an Alexander the Great Tetradrachm. So you have to respond in the comments to register. And second place will get an Ancient Coin Podcast shirt. But we're going to give away an Alexander the Great Tetradrachm. This should be really interesting. So how do they enter?
Yeah.
Just
I would say just comment something that you liked about the show.
Okay.
That's it.
And you're just going to pick the comment.
I think that's. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll take all the comments. Anybody who comments, you can even just say,
great show,
whatever, thumbs up. I don't really care. Just any comment, good or bad. We'll print out all the names, put them in a hat, and then we'll pick from there.
In an Ancient Coin podcast hat.
Yeah, exactly. I think I still have hats left. So maybe. So we could do what we could do is we could do Alexander the Great first place. We can do hat second place. We can do shirt third place.
Okay. I got that. I got a hat.
That's what we should do.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Well, there we go.
I think
There's
that's
your giveaway
as well.
It's summertime.
And it's also anniversary time.
It is also anniversary time. When did we start this show?
I'm just saying because it's number 65.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you got to celebrate the milestones. I think like at the 5 and the 10s, those are good milestones.
Yes, so. This is a good milestone. It has been
66, 67, 68. Well, we might celebrate 69 because it's my birth year.
Sure. So
beyond that.
Yeah. So this has been a lot of fun. And we encourage you to comment, enter the contest. When I will tell you that it's coming together for me. Some of it is coming together for me. You can just see it. You can really kind of see it. So thank you. Thanks for your patience watching me. Thanks to Aaron for teaching me everything. And thanks to everybody who listened and comments and tells us in all kinds of places that we walk into, hey, I see your podcast. Because it's always welcome. We're always grateful for it. And we love you for it. Thank you very much. We will talk to you probably 2 weeks. It may be a little bit longer. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. On episode 66 of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Burke.